June 5, 1942. South of Bir Hakeim, Libya, the desert trembles under the weight of engines. Tenente Carlo Bianchi of the 132 Division Gazala, RE8, squints through the heat shimmer from the cupola of his M13/40 tank. The morning sun is already brutal, flattening the world into a white glare of sand and steel. Fine dust creeps into his goggles, his throat, the breech of the 47mm cannon behind him. Somewhere to the east, British armor is moving that he knows this not because he has been told, but because the earth carries a rumor. A vibration, a distant metallic hum, a Vanny piano, he orders into the cramped hull. Slow. The driver nods, though Bianchi cannot see him clearly in the dim interior. There is no radio chatter filling the tank. No crackle of distant units reporting positions. The only sounds are the engine's grind and the labored breathing of 4 men sealed inside steel. Outside, across the desert, the British 8th Army is already speaking in a Valentine tank several kilometers away. A British troop leader adjusts his throat microphone. The wireless set numbered 19 hums alive, a steady pulse of organized electricity, sunray to all call signs. Enemy armor sighted bearing 270. Grid 4179. Advance by bounds. The message ripples outward instantly, from tank to tank, from troop to squadron, from squadron to brigade. Orders leap across miles faster than dust. Back in the RE formation, Bianchi sees a signal flare rise in the distance, red against the white sky. Another tank commander waves flags. A motorcycle courier kicks up sand racing between vehicles that it feels like the last war, that he mutters to himself, half in irritation, half in disbelief. Semper Così, always like this. They are brave men. They're not blind, but they're slowed out a shell lands 50 meters to their right. Sand erupts. The British have found them first. Inside his tank, Bianchi feels the shock through his boots. How? The gunner whispers. Bianchi knows the answer, though he has never seen it in full. The British do not fight as separate machines. They fight as one voice. June 5, 1942. Western Desert, Libya, the second shell lands closer. Fuoco. Bianchi shouts. The 47mm gun barks, the recoil slamming through the hull. Through the narrow vision slit, he sees nothing but dust and heat distortion. The British tanks are no longer where they were moments ago. They have shifted, not randomly, not chaotically, deliberately. Across the battlefield, British Crusaders and Valentines peel away in coordinated arcs. One troop pins the Italian position with suppressive fire while another maneuvers wide along a shallow depression invisible from RE8's forward arc. The movement is too precise. In a Crusader MK, 2-3 kilometers north, Lieutenant James Harcourt listens calmly to the steady hiss in his headphones. Red 2, flank left. Red 3, hold overwatch. Anti-tank guns likely dug in. The orders come from Squadron HQ. Harcourt doesn't need to see the entire battlefield. The battlefield speaks to him. Report stream in contact at grid 4181. Enemy armor, approximately company strength. Dust columns moving south. Each tank is a node. Each commander a sensor. The wireless net weaves them together. Back in Bianchi's M13/40, none of this is visible. Only the effect. Tenente, they're moving to the flank. The loader cries. Bianchi climbs halfway out of the turret despite incoming fire, binoculars shaking in his hands. Through the wavering air, he finally sees it. British armor sliding across their right like sharks in shallow water, and he reaches for the radio microphone instinctively. There is none. His tank does not have one. Only platoon leaders in RE8 are issued RF-1CA radios, and even those are unreliable, short-ranged, often broken by sand or battery failure. Most communication still depends on flags, runners, and prearranged plans. Prearranged plans are already dying in the dust that a messenger truck attempts to reach the neighboring company. It explodes under artillery fire before crossing half the distance. Bianchi drops back into the turret. Signal them with smoke. White smoke hisses upward from his tank. but is swallowed by wind and chaos. The formation fragments. Individual tanks begin reacting independently, some turning to meet the flank, others pressing forward blindly. The British net adjusts instantly. Enemy, right collapsing. Push through gap. Orders transmitted. Executed. Confirmed that in minutes WWII noon. WWII has lost 7 tanks. Bianchi wipes sweat and cordite residue from his face. He does not blame his men, he blames silence. Later that evening, as the battered remnants withdraw toward Gazala, Bianchi sits beside his disabled tank and watches British armored columns regroup miles away. Even at that distance, he can see their aerial mass, thin steel antennae swaying above every vehicle. Every vehicle, he says it aloud, barely believing it. Agni, Caro, Hanno, una radio. Every tank, they have a radio. The desert listens, and the British answer. June 21st, 1942. Forward headquarters, near Tobruk. The wind rattles the canvas walls of the command tent as General Feldmarschall Erwin Rommel leans over a folding table covered in sand-stained maps. The fall of Tobruk has electrified Berlin. Headlines will speak of brilliance, momentum, destiny, but inside the tent, Rommel's expression is tight. Oberstleutnant Fritz Bayerlein stands opposite him, headset pressed to one ear, relaying fragmented reports from Panzer Army Africa. 21st Panzer requests fuel resupply. WWII reporting heavy losses. British units regrouping south of El Adab. The lines fade in and out with atmospheric interference. Rommel straightens, eyes narrowing. Why are they regrouping so quickly? No one answers immediately, because they all know the British have reconstituted their armored brigades in hours, not days. Units that were scattered that morning are now operating as coherent formations again. Their withdrawals are orderly. Their counterattacks synchronized. Rommel understands radios. German doctrine depends on them. Every Panzer III and Panzer IV carries a FUG 5 set. Even half-tracks and command vehicles are wired into a flexible command network. It is one reason Blitzkrieg succeeded in Poland and France. But the Afrika Korps is not fighting alone. Across the desert, Italian formations anchor the line, brave, disciplined in many cases, but hamstrung by equipment shortages and inconsistent wireless distribution. Rommel gestures toward a sector on the map. WWII was supposed to pivot here. Bayerlein hesitates. Their courier was delayed. Her Feldmarschall. Delayed. Rommel exhales sharply. He has seen it repeatedly since arriving in Africa in 1941. Italian units often depend on motorcycles or light trucks to carry orders. When fuel runs short, when aircraft strafe the roads, when sand clogs engines, communication collapses. Meanwhile, British command vehicles hum with generators and spare batteries. Earlier that week, a captured British Universal Carrier was brought into camp. Italian officers gathered around it like archaeologists studying alien machinery. The small tracked vehicle carried not one, but 2 wireless sets, point 1 for troop communication, point 1 for higher command. The realization spread slowly through the observers. This was not luxury. This was standard. Rommel removes his gloves and rubs the bridge of his nose. They are adapting faster than we are. Outside, an Italian staff captain studies the same capture vehicle. He runs his fingers along the metal casing of the numbered 19 wireless set. Perchko C. Tanny, he murmurs. Why so many? A German signals officer answers plainly. Because they expect every unit to think and to speak. The implication stings that in the desert, mobility is survival. But mobility without communication is blindness. Rommel looks once more at the map. The British are no longer reacting. They are anticipating, and anticipation travels on radio waves. August 30th, 1942. Alam El Halfa Ridge, Egypt. Night falls like a curtain of ink. Corporal William Billy Mercer of the British 7th Armored Division crouches beside his Sherman tank, the desert wind tugging at the canvas flap of the turret hatch. The engine ticks as it cools. Above him, the stars burn cold and indifferent. In his headphones, there is no silence. Sunray to all units. Enemy armored columns advancing north of Deir el-Rajal. Maintain radio discipline. The voice is calm, measured. It carries authority without shouting. Billy adjusts the tuning dial on the wireless set number 19 mounted beside him. The faint green glow of the instrument panel paints his hands in ghostly light. The set links him to his troop leader, his squadron, and brigade command. All layered through separate frequencies, he can hear the war unfolding miles away. Reports from reconnaissance cars, artillery corrections from forward observers. Even the RAF calling in positions that IT feels like standing inside a web of invisible threads across the desert. Italian armored units advance under Rommel's directive to outflank the British line. Engines roar. Dust plumes rise like smoke signals from antiquity. Tenente Carlo Bianchi is back inside a replacement tank, an M14/41 issued weeks after Gazala. The metal still smells new. The radio slot beside his seat remains empty. Orders came earlier in the afternoon. Advance north by compass bearing. Engage enemy armor on contact. NO update since he peers through binoculars. Do you see anything? His gunner asks. Nothing, Bianchi replies. But that is the problem. He does not know where British anti-tank guns are positioned. He does not know whether German panzers are keeping pace on his left. He does not know that the British have deliberately allowed this advance on Alamein El Halfa Ridge. General Bernard Montgomery stands beside a command vehicle bristling with antennae. He speaks quietly into a microphone. Let them come. British artillery batteries receive updated grid references within seconds. Adjustments are calculated. Firing data transmitted. When the Italian and German columns move into range, the desert erupts. Shells land with surgical precision along the advancing axis. Anti-tank guns open fire from concealed ridgelines. British tanks, already repositioned based on wireless reconnaissance, strike the flanks. Inside his tank, Bianchi feels the impact before he understands it. A nearby vehicle bursts into flames. Where are the Germans? His driver shouts. Bianchi does not know. He has no confirmation of their position. No assurance of coordinated movement. Only assumptions that he realizes is something chilling as he watches British tanks pivot in unison. They're not guessing. They are listening, and every movement they make is informed by dozens of unseen conversations. The Italian advance falters. Engines reverse. Formations disintegrate under concentrated fire. Billy Mercer hears it all through the net. Enemy armor withdrawing. Pursuit not authorized. Hold positions. He exhales sweat cold on his neck that he never once lost contact. Miles away, Bianchi climbs from his tank after the retreat, is ordered by Flair's signal, the only method left. He watches British vehicles reposition even in darkness. Guided by radio instructions and luminous compass bearings, he says quietly to his crew, they fight like one machine. For the first time, the realization feels heavier than the defeat itself. October 18th, 1942. South of El Daba, Egypt. The motorcycle coughs against the wind. Caporale Luigi Ferraro leans forward over the handlebars of his Moto Guzzi House, goggles smeared with dust. In a leather satchel strapped to his chest are the day's revised orders for elements of the Italian XX Corps. The paper is already damp with sweat. He accelerates across the open desert, following tire tracks barely visible in the sand. There is no radio in his vehicle. He is the radio. Ahead, artillery flashes on the horizon. The British have begun probing attacks along the El Alamein line. Every hour, positions shift. Every hour, new instructions must reach battalions scattered across miles of barren terrain. Luigi knows the risks. Aircraft patrol the skies. British armored cars roam unpredictably. A single shell could erase him and the orders he carries. But this is how the network functions. Point one man. One message. One direction. Several kilometers away, inside a British command truck disguised beneath netting, Major Arthur Collins studies a situation map illuminated by a shaded lamp. A wireless operator speaks rapidly beside him. Recon reports increased Axis traffic on route Tri-Capuzzo. Intercepted signals suggest armor repositioning. Collins nods. Inform 9th Armored Brigade. Adjust artillery priority accordingly. The message is transmitted instantly. A ripple in the ether. Back on the open desert, Luigi spots dust to his right. In armored car, British, he swerves hard. Bullets snap past him, stitching sand in sharp bursts. The motorcycle fishtails. He guns the throttle, heart hammering. A shell lands somewhere ahead. The blast knocks him sideways. He crashes, rolling through grit and smoke. For several seconds, there's only ringing in his ears that he reaches for the satchel. Intact, he staggers to his feet, dragging the bike upright. The engine sputters, but catches. He rides again, slower now, shaken but determined. By the time Luigi reaches the forward battalion, nearly 2 hours have passed since departure. The situation has changed twice. The colonel receiving the orders frowns. This is already outdated. Luigi says nothing. He cannot argue with physics. Meanwhile, British units have adjusted artillery fire 3 times in that same window. Tanks have shifted lines based on real-time reconnaissance. Infantry companies have been redirected to reinforce weak points before Axis commanders even know those weak points exist. That on the eve of the Second Battle of El Alamein. The contrast is stark. One side depends on couriers racing against time and death. The other speaks at the speed of electricity. Luigi removes his helmet and looks back toward the desert he crossed. He realizes something that chills him more than enemy fire. By the time he arrives anywhere, the war has already moved on. October 23, 1942. El Alamein Line, Egypt. 21:40 hours. The desert explodes into light. Tenente Carlo Bianchi is standing outside his dugout when the first British artillery barrage begins. The horizon ignites in a continuous sheet of flame. Thousands of guns, British 25-pounders, medium artillery, even naval guns mounted on rail platforms, fire in coordinated waves. The sound is not thunder, it is machinery. Relentless. Mechanical. Measured. Bianchi drops flat as shells scream overhead and detonate behind the Italian positions. Sand and rock rain down. Telephone lines strung between defensive points snap instantly under the concussion. Telefono e morto, a signal's corporal shouts. The field line is dead. Within minutes, entire sections of a defensive network are cut off from each other. In a British forward observation post, Captain Richard Howell adjusts his headset calmly as the barrage continues. Battery C, lift 200 yards. Battery D, maintain suppression on grid 882344. His voice travels through field cable and radio simultaneously. When one line fails, another carries the signal. Spotters report impact corrections in near real time. Howell doesn't need to see every gun. He hears them respond. The British have rehearsed this for weeks. Operation Lightfoot is not merely an artillery bombardment. It is choreography. Behind the curtain of fire, infantry divisions advance through carefully mapped minefields. Engineers communicate progress through wireless sets carried at platoon level. Armored units wait for clearance signals transmitted via radio. Across the Axis line, confusion spreads faster than flame. Bianchi scrambles back into his M14/41 as reports arrive by shouting messengers. The Germans say hold position. Which Germans? Someone demands, and one knows. German units to the north attempt to relay updates via their own efficient radio network, but coordination across national lines is inconsistent. Italian formations lack compatible wireless systems in sufficient numbers. Information bottlenecks form instantly. Midnight, Bianchi finally receives a confirmed order, relayed by a staff car that braved artillery fire. Hold until further notice. He looks toward the ridgeline. Through flashes of light, he sees something unsettling. British tanks are moving in darkness with confidence. Their columns adjust formation without hesitation, guided by invisible instructions. Inside one of those tanks, Billy Mercer grips the turret rim. Advance to phase line kidney. His squadron leader's voice crackles through the headphones. Keep interval. Watch for anti-tank fire. The night is chaotic, but he is never isolated. Even in blackout conditions, even under fire, the net connects them. The barrage lifts exactly as scheduled. Infantry breach, lanes open on time. Armored units roll forward precisely when signaled. Bianchi feels the shift. The British assault is not random pressure. The IT is synchronized momentum. He whispers to himself over the roar of engines and detonations. They are speaking to each other, even now. As dawn approaches, sections of the Axis line have already begun to fracture. Not because the men lack courage, but because the voices guiding them are fragmented, delayed, and often silent. In the British ranks, the sky still whispers through headphones and radio mass. In the Italian lines, runners prepare to cross open ground again, and the desert, once vast and isolating, has become smaller for one side and impossibly larger for the other. November 2nd, 1942. Tel el-Akakir, Egypt. 5:15 hours. Dawn creeps over the desert like a pale blade. Tenente Carlo Bianchi stands beside his tank as German Panzer engines rev somewhere to the north. Operation Supercharge has begun. The British final push meant to rupture the Axis line once and for all. He hasn't slept more than an hour in 2 days that the German liaison officer rushes toward him, breathless. Panzer Division repositioning east. You must hold until 0700. How far east? Bianchi demands. The officer hesitates. Uncertain. Uncertain. That word again. The Germans are communicating internally with speed and precision. Their FUG radios coordinating counterattacks, but the link between German and Italian units is strained. Frequencies differ. Equipment differs. Procedures differ. And under heavy jamming and artillery disruption, clarity evaporates. T-530, British artillery resumes. Shells hammer defensive positions in deliberate patterns. Within minutes, forward Italian anti-tank guns are silenced. Telephone wires, already patched repeatedly, snap again. In a Sherman tank advancing behind the barrage. Billy Mercer hears the signal. Execute supercharge. All armor forward. The brigade net erupts with confirmations. Red 1 moving. Blue 2 advancing. Contact left, minor resistance. Even as shells fall, even as dust blinds vision, the flow of information never stops. British units report obstacles instantly. Engineers are redirected within seconds. Artillery adjusts to suppress newly identified gun nests. The breakthrough widens. Bianchi receives conflicting instructions via 2 separate messengers within 10 minutes. Hold position. Withdraw 50 meters. Counterattack west. He climbs halfway out of his turret, scanning the horizon. German panzers appear briefly through the smoke, then vanish behind dunes. He cannot confirm whether they are advancing or retreating. There is no steady voice in his ear, only fragments. Suddenly, British tanks crest a low rise ahead. Not scattered, but aligned. They fire in coordinated volleys, shifting targets with practiced rhythm. Retreat. Someone shouts. Bianchi hesitates for 1 fatal second, hoping for confirmation. None comes. An explosion rocks the tank to his left. Flames climb skyward. He orders withdrawal by hand signal. Waving his arm in a desperate arc, his platoon fragments as drivers interpret the gesture differently. Some reverse. Some pivot. Point 1 surges forward mistakenly into open ground. Within an hour, the Axis line at Tel el-Akakir is torn open. Rommel, ill and absent days earlier, now returns to a collapsing front. German radio traffic crackles urgently with withdrawal orders. Italian units, receiving confirmation late or not at all, are overrun in pockets. By midday, Bianchi's tank is abandoned. Engine crippled, ammunition nearly gone, he watches British armored columns pass in disciplined formation, antennae swaying like reeds. They do not look chaotic. They look connected. He finally understands something with painful clarity. Courage without communication is isolation, and isolation in modern war is defeat. Axis forces begin the long retreat west toward Tunisia. The desert feels transformed. Once it was vast and unknowable. Now it belongs to whoever can speak across it. November 12th, 1942. West of Tobruk, Libya. The wind carries the smell of burned fuel. Tenente Carlo Bianchi rides not in a tank now, but in the back of a Fiat truck overloaded with men from what remains of his company. The retreat has become a river of steel flowing west. German panzers, Italian trucks, artillery pieces dragged by exhausted tractors. Above them, British aircraft circle methodically. Every few kilometers, the column halts abruptly. Rumors pass from vehicle to vehicle like whispers in a cathedral. The Germans are forming a new line. No, Benghazi is already abandoned. Fuel dumps destroyed. No one knows which is true, because no one hears it directly. German signals half-track pushes past, tall antenna vibrating. Inside, operators bark into microphones, coordinating demolition teams and rearguard actions. Their system functions, strained but intact. Italian vehicles, by contrast, wait for instructions to arrive. Physically, a staff car races up in a plume of dust. An officer leans out shouting, "Divert south." The coastal road is under artillery fire. The message spreads unevenly. Some drivers turn immediately. Others never hear it. Minutes later, British shells begin landing along the main road. In a British armored car, scouting ahead, Sergeant Alan Reeves watches the Axis column through binoculars. Contact confirmed. Large-scale withdrawal. He reports into his set. The response comes instantly. Maintain shadowing distance. Do not engage heavily. Air support inbound. Within 20 minutes, RAF fighter bombers roar overhead, guided by radio coordinates relayed from Reeves' position. Bombs fall with brutal precision along choke points in the retreating column. Bianchi dive from the truck as explosions tear through fuel carriers ahead. Flames leap skyward. Screams mix with detonations. He scrambles behind a dune, heart pounding. Who told them? A soldier beside him gasps. Bianchi knows the answer now. They did not need spies. They needed radios. The retreat continues westward. The pattern repeats daily. British reconnaissance units detect movement and transmit coordinates. Artillery adjusts. Aircraft intercept. Axis commanders struggle to maintain cohesion across hundreds of kilometers of desert. Fuel shortages compound delays. When units lose contact, they sometimes drive blindly for hours before reconnecting. Rommel himself, commanding with urgency, relies heavily on German radio networks to orchestrate fighting withdrawals. But the uneven integration of Italian formations slows the tempo. In the British 8th Army, Montgomery's staff monitors the pursuit in near real time. Situation maps are updated hourly based on wireless reports from forward elements. The desert, once a void, has become transparent. Night. Bianchi sits beside a small fire near Ajdabiya. The retreat has cost them vehicles, friends. Certainty. He stares at the horizon where British columns advance, even in darkness. He imagines the constant murmur inside their vehicles, the steady reassurance of connection. For weeks he believed defeat came from inferior armor, weaker guns, fewer resources. Now he understands something more unsettling. The British are faster because they are never alone. And the Axis retreat is slower because silence stretches between every unit like an unbridgeable gulf. Ahead lies Tunisia. Behind them, the long echo of radio waves they could never hear. February 20th, 1943. Kasserine Pass, Tunisia. Cold rain replaces desert heat. Tenente Carlo Bianchi pulls his greatcoat tighter as muddy wind cuts through the rocky pass. The North African campaign has shifted terrain, but not tempo. German forces under General Oberst Hans-Jürgen von Arnim prepare a counteroffensive against American positions. Unlike earlier desert engagements, this battle will test a new opponent. Bianchi now commands a mixed Italian-German detachment assigned to support the attack. A German Panzer III idles nearby, its long antenna swaying in the drizzle. Inside the German vehicle, radio traffic flows steadily. Panzergruppe advance at 0600. Artillery preparation 5 minutes prior. Maintain contact with reconnaissance elements. The German net is disciplined, efficient, but coordination across national units still lags. Bianchi receives instructions through a German liaison officer who translates rapidly under fire. There is no direct integration into the German frequency network. His men must rely on visual signals. Once movement begins at T-dawn, the attack surges forward. Initially, it succeeds. American units, inexperienced in their first major clash with veteran Axis forces, falter under pressure. Positions are overrun. Vehicles abandoned. Yet something changes within hours. In an American M3 half-track behind the lines, a young signal sergeant grips his microphone. Red Fox to division. Enemy armor penetrating center. Request immediate artillery support. Grid coordinates following. The Americans, like the British, are saturated with radios. SCR 300 backpack sets for infantry. Vehicle-mounted SCR 508 and SCR 610 systems linking armor and command. Within minutes, artillery begins responding. American artillery doctrine built around rapid fire direction centers, adjust guns with startling speed. Batteries miles away receive updated coordinates and fire in coordinated salvos. Axis units pushing through the pass suddenly encounter precise counter-battery fire. German radio operators respond quickly, adjusting formations, calling for air support, but Bianchi's detachment receives updates late. A messenger vehicle attempting to redirect them is hit by artillery shrapnel. The message never arrives. His unit advances in a terrain already targeted by American guns. Shells slam into rocky slopes. One Italian truck erupts in flame. Men scatter for cover. "Why weren't we told?" his sergeant shouts. "Because the information moved faster than they could receive it." Over the next days, American command reorganizes. Under General George S. Patton's leadership, radio discipline tightens. Units that initially faltered begin coordinating effectively across distances. WWII late February. The Axis offensive stalls. Bianchi watches from a ridge as American armored columns reposition with growing confidence. Antennae protrude from nearly every vehicle. Even supply trucks. He shakes his head in quiet disbelief. Not just the British, the Americans too. Radios in every vehicle. The pattern is no longer coincidence. It is doctrine. Axis forces withdraw once more. This time toward the shrinking perimeter in Tunisia. Bianchi feels the weight of a lesson learned too late. The battlefield has evolved beyond courage, beyond individual maneuver. It belongs to those who can think collectively and speak. Instantly, the rain falls steadily over the pass, and through it all, invisible waves continue to carry commands across the mountains. May 12, 1943. Near Tunis, Tunisia. The war in Africa is ending not with a charge, but with a murmur. Tenente Carlo Bianchi sits on an ammunition crate outside a shattered farmhouse, helmet resting beside him. The fields beyond are littered with abandoned vehicles, German half-tracks, Italian trucks, artillery pieces without tractors. The engines are silent now. For days, rumors have swirled through the collapsing Axis perimeter, supplies exhausted. No fuel left. The Germans negotiating. This time, the rumors arrive not by courier, but by inevitability. The German signals truck sits nearby, its tall antenna still intact. Inside, operators listen to the last transmissions from higher command. Orders are short. Final. Cease resistance. Destroy codes. Prepare for surrender. Even in defeat, the German radio network functions until the very end. Italian units receive confirmation through liaison officers moving carefully between positions. There are no more counterattacks to coordinate, no more lines to hold. Only acceptance. Across the valley, British armored cars roll forward cautiously. Antennae sway in the wind. Loudspeakers crackle. Lay down your arms. You are surrounded. The message carries in Italian and German. IT has been transmitted across multiple frequencies, coordinated between British and American commands, synchronized to prevent confusion. Bianchi watches as his remaining men stack rifles in small, orderly piles, and one speaks much. The desert wind, once filled with engine noise and artillery thunder, now carries something else. The faint, constant static from Allied vehicles still communicating as they secure the area. Even in victory, they remain. Connected. A British officer approaches under a white flag. He looks tired but composed. His Jeep carries two wireless sets mounted side by side. Bianchi notices them immediately. He almost laughs. Not bitterly, but in recognition. "Is it true?" he asks quietly in hesitant English. "Every vehicle?" The officer nods. "As many as we can fit." Bianchi studies the antenna rising from a Jeep. For a year, he fought bravely across Libya and Egypt. He saw tanks burn, lines collapse, advances stalled. He once believed the desert was decided by armor thickness, by gun caliber, by numbers. Now, at the end, he understands the Allies did not simply move faster. They thought faster. Because they spoke constantly in North Africa, from Gazala to Alamein to Tunisia, the battlefield belonged to the side that could shrink distance into seconds. Radios did not replace courage. They multiplied as Allied troops escort prisoners toward collection points. The antennas continued to sway, thin silhouettes against the North African sky. Invisible voices still travel between them. The desert is quiet, but it remembers the sound of electricity.